We do have a crested barbet here who we think might have a little hole, cavity nest in this dead knobthorn tree. It just came up underneath the bark there and was doing something we didn't see, possibly feeding chicks that are in a cavity. It's a perfect tree for cavities for barbets, woodpeckers and that sort. So we're just hoping, maybe because it just flew down on the ground, might be picking up some more insects or some more fruit to bring back to the chicks. So we could give it another moment. But the knobthorn tree that we have here, it is a dead one, of course. And if you look at the base of the tree itself, the bark has been totally stripped. And that is something that happens out here. It happens with elephants. Elephants like to strip the bark of these trees for the nutrients. There's very, very rich in nutrients in the knobthorn bark. Very, very good nutrients for the elephants that they will capitalize in the winter months. But unfortunately, these trees don't survive when they are completely ring-barked. And but what it does provide for is a number of dead trees eventually that woodpeckers start feeding on, because when the bark is stripped, you get access to the tree. Because what is the purpose of the bark? The bark is to prevent the tree or save the tree from fire, which is very, very prevalent in the savanna biome, or protect it from insects. There you can see a little bit of marking there. Stripped. So that is the dead wood inside, the heartwood and the bark on the outside. Once it is completely, well, it's ring-barked in a way like that, and at the base it's quite obvious it has been. It's difficult or impossible for the tree to transport nutrients from the roots up to the leaves. And the leaves are where the photosynthesis takes place, and then those nutrients and sugars are then transferred around the tree and enables the tree to live and to obviously reproduce. But once the bark is stripped, the tree will die, and a tree like this can probably stand, it's not the hardest of wood, probably stand for about 5 to 10 years, and in that space of time all sorts of wood-boring insects will penetrate the tree, will get inside. Now, it is an absolutely amazing ecosystem in there. You can see where the wood is kind of rotting. There's going to be a various number of insects and borers inside there, and woodpeckers will come along, will tap the bark. We saw it yesterday. They listen, they tap, they dig, and it leads to cavities. And a tree like this, if it's standing for 5 to 10 years, there could quite easily be 5 to 10 seasons of breeding of even just one species. There's about 29 or so species, if I'm correct, in this area that rely on cavity nests for their breeding. They don't have any form of material building the nest. They rely on cavities, and it goes to show that the dead trees in these environments that are created by elephant activity, these birds have evolved over a very long period of time, and they need that habitat. Without that habitat, they don't breed. Did you see him come back, Vildi? There we go, we have a southern black tit. Southern black tits who are actually just running around the tree, busy gleaning any small insects off of the branches. Different strategies to the woodpeckers, but very, very productive. Often find them in small feeding flocks. For those of you who haven't seen one before, maybe we get a better visual of him there. Just jump up, he's black with a little white wing barring. There he is. Beautiful little bird. You can hear, I don't know if you can hear them calling. There's a beautiful shot of it. And the term gleaning is just running around in the branches and finding any small insects that might be attached to the leaves, the branches. Obviously no leaves in this case. But folks, we're going to stay here and keep investigating and see if that crested barber comes back. And then we'll wow you with some more tree facts in a little bit. I might focus on the knobthorn today, but while we do so, while we carry on, we're going to be going up to Miss McCurdy, who I believe has got some lions.
I love how Miss McCurdy is now trending. And everyone just calls me that these days. It's been pretty much my name my entire life. Very few people call me Taylor. Right, now we're still with our lions, but everything seems to have settled down slightly. No, as I say that, then that cub goes into crouch mode and look like it wants to play. Well, some of the cubs want to play a little greeting ceremony of the adults, or some of the adults and some of the cubs, all getting in there saying hello. You can imagine that little one is going rah, 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 rah. And of course, you can see lots of safari cars, of course, enjoying the sighting with us today. And those lionesses still haven't caught anything since we last saw them this morning. So I bet they're going to be very busy tonight and wanting to hunt. And there's lots and lots of prey around for them. There's lots of zebra. I've been hearing them. And seeing all the warthogs. Of course, they're going to be heading underground soon, though. Especially on a gloomy day like today. There's another cub just bouncing out from the lugger. Oh, this is so cool. I want to see that little cub, though, that has the injury. It is around. It might just be sitting down. Perhaps it's a little bit on the tired side. You can imagine if you are not all there, it can be hard to try and keep up with the rest of the pride. Now, Nina, you know, up here in the Mara, the rules are slightly different than what they are down in the Sabi sand. So typically in the Sabi sand, we would only intervene, and in a lot of places in South Africa, if it was an injury due to human interference. So a snare, a spear, a bullet wound, anything along those lines, we would assist. So a rhino being poached, we would help them if they were still alive. There we go. There's the cub with the injury. You can see just in the middle. No, leave your sibling alone. It's sore. But of course they don't care. They're just going to keep playing. It keeps them tough. But don't worry, because it was running at one point, and when it was running, it looked fine. So I think it's obviously just hurt a muscle or something like that, or paw, which will take some time. But here in the Mara, they tend to assist the animals on a regular basis. I'm not sure what the protocol will be here, though. I think it's a natural injury. It could have come from playing. Like I said, it could have happened at a feeding frenzy over a carcass. Those injuries are quite common to young cubs because they're stubborn. They don't want to listen, and we've seen it so many times. They think that they wear the biggest boots and they get the say, but they don't, unfortunately. Even though the lionesses treat them that way, the males, when they are around, have zero tolerance at a carcass. So the little one will be fine, though. I'm pretty sure it'll be okay. It had a big belly, so it's not like it's not eating anymore. It's definitely still suckling. It's just having some trouble keeping up. But the rest of the pride will wait for it, though. One of the adults will go back and help it out. Yes, you're tired from trying to catch up. They'll be alright. So no need to panic, everybody. I'll keep watching this little cub, but I'm sure it's going to make a full recovery. And sadly, if it doesn't, you know what? It is nature, and not all the predators are supposed to survive. Can you imagine if every single lion from every litter here in the Mara Triangle survived? There would be an overpopulation of lions fairly quickly. So, these things happen. The ebbs and flows of nature. Well, at least the little ones are starting to wake up, so we'll stay here and watch them for a little bit longer. But somebody else that has got a cat is Tristan, and it sounds like she's not as busy as these little cubs, but you never know with Thandi. Maybe her little one comes out and wakes her up.
I do indeed. So we've given Thandi a lot of distance and space, and you can see now she's calming right down. So she's gone into a sleeping position now, which is fantastic news. So it means that she's at least relaxing with us being here. The other vehicle has left, so it's just us now. And like I say, we've parked very far from her. We're not close to her at all, which means that it allows us the opportunity to just let her relax a little bit, and hopefully she'll get calm enough, and then later we'll get a little closer and we'll be able to at least view her slightly better than what we are now. Now she's just kind of resting up in a little thicket, and I really don't want to bother her much more than she's been bothered already so far this afternoon. And like I said, it was just a lot at once, and it's very typical of her to be like this. She sees somebody on foot, then she sees a vehicle, and she gets a little bit kind of panicked about it. Well, not panicked, but that's always been her demeanor. She's gone after, sort of shown an aggressive side when she feels like there's people around or something like that. So it's nothing to worry about. It's how she's always been. And so the thing about her is to just give her a bit of space after the fact, and then she actually calms down relatively quickly. Like you can see now, she's now sleeping and taking it very easy. Autumn, you're wondering how many cubs can a leopard have in its lifetime? Well, it obviously is very dependent on what goes on as to whether they have their cubs raised to adulthood, whether their cubs die. That will all sort of differentiate between them. So hypothetically, if we take somebody like Kruger, so she had all of her cubs, and most of them survived. She only lost the one. So if we add all those litters together,
then it would be, I just got to count them now, because it was Induna and Mishu, it was Shivinzi, Shivambalana, Thandi Shadow, there was Quarantine Kunyuma, and then obviously Hosana and Shungila. So that was those 5, plus she had a 6th set, which obviously, well, 6th one, or litter, that didn't survive, and so she only had 6. But if we look at somebody like Shadow's probably had double that in her lifetime. It's because she's had very little success in raising cubs, and therefore she'll have a lot more, because she'll constantly be coming into an estrus cycle, constantly be mating and producing cubs. But if they're not surviving, then she just does it over again. And so the more successful females have less cubs, whereas the more unsuccessful have more cubs, but yet their cubs won't survive. So it will all balance itself out eventually. But theoretically, if they're very successful animals, they'll be very much like Kruger, in that they'll have 5 to 6 litters would be about the maximum that they would have if they're very successful. If they are unsuccessful, they could have anywhere upward of 12 to 14 litters throughout their lifetime. It also obviously depends on how old they live to. So Karula, who was 12 years old when she disappeared, could theoretically have had another set of cubs still after that. We know that there are some females. If you look at the Styx Pride, there's one of the females there that is having cubs, and she's around sort of 15 years old. So, there's cats can still have cubs quite late, around 14, 15, but that is really on the sort of upper limit. Particularly for leopards, you find that they tend to battle a little bit with it and start to really not mate that much after they reach about 14 years old. So Thandi, I would say, has got this little one that she's now got to raise, being 11 years old. This little one will be raised over the course of the next year. And then it's going to be interesting to see if she does exactly what she did with Tumba. So Tumba was the little male that she had before this cub that she's currently got. And he was abandoned, well, not abandoned, but he was left at around sort of 15 months is when she first started to leave him alone. So theoretically, that would put her at about 12 and a half. So easily time for another set after this little one, should this one be successful. Right, well, we're going to spend most of our afternoon with Thandi now that we've found her. Hopefully she'll lead us back to the cub at some point, and hopefully we'll get her to sort of come out a little bit, and she'll be a little bit more kind of relaxed about life later in the afternoon. So while we do that, let's go across to Steve, who is once again into the trees, I believe.
Well done, Tristan. I believe you have found the beautiful Thandi. And while you enjoy leopards that side, we're going to jump off the vehicle and talk about a very, very special tree. If you can see it here, get right up close. This is a knobthorn. It has got the largest leaf structure of the acacia family, also now known as Vitilia, I believe, or Senegalensis, because of the hooked thorns. And you got to be very careful with these guys, because you never come off second. You always come off second best with a knobthorn. I'm going to bring it to you now, but can you see in the tree there, VM? Can you see the knobs at all on the branch? On the branch. I'm going to get one of them for you without bleeding, because this is painful stuff. Oh. Okay. Did I get one? No. Sorry, folks. You always bleed when you hit an knobthorn. Okay. Here I come. I have my samples. And I didn't bleed. That's probably a first in a very long time. Here you can see closely, if you look over here, the 2 hooked thorns. And it is designed for hooking. It catches on my jacket. Once you get in there, it's very difficult to get out. And the leaves are twice divided, and actually quite tasty. A lot better than the silver cluster leaf of yesterday. Taste, there's not too much bitterness. This tree is favored by giraffe. Giraffe love it. Kudu, impala, pretty much any animal who is a browser out here absolutely adores this tree. We spoke before about elephants. Elephants damage these trees. They cause a lot of harm to them. This is obviously quite a small one, and just by the way that it's growing, you can see that it's got a lot of herbivore pressure. You can see it's not growing tall. It's almost being bonsaied in that shape because of elephants, impala, and giraffe around the top. But if we go back to the big one at the back there, these trees, tall knobthorn trees, are probably the preferred tree for large raptors, large vultures, large eagles. Very inaccessible trees, very hard to climb up. And that is where they choose to nest. And one of the reasons why I like to talk about this tree today, we saw that dead one before, that the elephant is damaged and over time it is dead, leading to the demise of that tree. But over time, what we have seen in the Kruger National Park is a decline in the number of knobthorn species as the elephant population has gone up. Now, it's important to understand where we stand in this debate. Too many elephants or not, but what we have seen through science is the knobthorn population is going down, and with that, the vultures per hectare nesting sites are going down. So it's something to take into consideration. Yes, elephants are a natural ecosystem engineer, but we have put a fence around them, albeit the Kruger National Park is 400,000 acres, 4 million acres, my apologies, I'm trying to translate that from hectares, 4 million acres. It is a huge, huge area, but yet the elephants still are fenced in. So it is a debate we can go on for hours about that, but to talk about the knobthorn more, the leaves are very, very palatable, and the knobs themselves, you can see why it's called a knobthorn. They've got that little knob on the branches with a thorn on top. And what you can do with this is, if you have any sinus issues, you can pull out a little file. That's not a file. Pull out a file, very handy little tool, and you can file this down onto a piece of paper or something, and you can actually use it as a form of snuff in your nostrils, and it clears up those sinuses. I have had American guests years ago with prescription sinus medication that she had plenty of it, and she never ever had a proper nose that was clear, and I gave her a little bit of this, and within minutes she was clear. And that is medicinal value in nature. She ended up taking quite a few of these home. I'm not sure if she got through passport control with them, but she did that anyway. And I've had many students in the past that have tried this and have given me the same result. Obviously, you want a little bit of water afterwards because it might go down the back of the throat, and then it's not that palatable. But the knobthorn tree, a marvelous, marvelous tree. From an ecosystem point of view, it is very, very important for what we have out here, for bird nesting, for feeding, and just for being an amazing tree. Okay, well, Tristan is with Thandi, which I think you are all very, very happy about. James, I was getting a little bit concerned when he was trying to relocate her on foot. It's fine to look for her on foot, but it's difficult to get a visual. I've told you all my story of finding a leopard on foot. It's quite scary, and you never get a very good visual of a leopard on foot, and I think it was quite exciting nonetheless. But now Tristan's gone in and he's doing his thing, but we're going to continue on here. We're going to keep going, see what we can find on the road, and we're going to link somewhere. I didn't quite copy that, Lou, but we're going to link somewhere, and we'll be back with you shortly.
So what we got here is a flower. It's the kind of thing you give to a woman that you love. It's a bit sticky. It feels a bit like someone has dipped it in honey or something, which is a stupid thing to do with a flower. If I find a guy who disrespected this flower like that, I'll bust a cap, and whack him. You know what they say. This flower is really quite nice. It's called a hibiscus, like those ones you find in Hawaii sometimes, but they're much bigger there, obviously. This one is a small one. Hibiscus micrantha is what some botanist called it one day. I don't know why he called it that, but that's what it is. Hibiscus micrantha. I was taught that by a good friend of mine on Twitter. Her name is... Her name is Judy H. Steve says I must touch it. Well, Steve, I will touch it. I'm not afraid, Steve. I don't know what you're saying about me. You think I'm afraid. I'm not afraid, Steve. If you disrespect me like that, you know what happens, Steve. We don't do that around here. We're family, you and I, Steve. We don't disrespect the family. You know that. Okay, let's keep moving. We left the leopard. I'm glad to say she's relaxed now. She's fine. No one's threatening her family. Because if there's one thing I've learned in my time, you don't threaten the family. It's no good. We don't put up with that stuff. Now come over here, David. Let me show someone else here. I don't know when I'm going to stop talking like this. It should happen pretty soon, I think. It's going to stop being funny very soon. don't know what it is about the Marlon Brando Godfather that I wish so dreadfully to be able to imitate properly, and I do apologize for that. I'm really sorry. Mostly to the late Marlon Brando for doing such an appalling imitation. Anyway, here we have Ozeroa spherocarpa, the resin bush. So not the raisin bush, the resin bush. And I believe that it is possible to make some kind of resin from the sap. I think you've probably got to let it get a lot bigger than this, and the only way it's going to get bigger than this is if you take all the elephants out of an area. They quite like this bush quite a lot. That's beautiful English, Henry. It must be because you are so Italian. Marvellous. Okay, that was Ozeroa spherocarpa. That was Hibiscus macrantha. We're going to go over to my pal Ralph up there in the Masai Mara. I hope it's a good time with him, whatever he's got. Ciao.
Thank you, James. And maybe one day I'll teach you to speak some real French. But in the meantime, everybody, we had to leave those cheetah because we need to make our way over slowly towards Salah's camp. And so it's quite a long way away from the cheetahs, so we had to leave them. They were lying down, and it didn't look like they were going to get up anytime soon. They had been doing that for most of the day, and shame. They did look like they really wanted to hunt, but then they seemed to change their minds very quickly thereafter as well. But nice to be discovering once again some other places in the reserve, and we are having to do a little bit of navigation. Last time I was here I had Manu with me, who was just pointing me in every direction, so it's nice now I'm learning the place a little bit by myself. And it's been a bit tricky because we've had a lot of cloud cover, so we couldn't even work out which direction we were facing. And luckily now the sun has poked through a little bit, so we can work with that a bit better. So while we continue along with our trying to navigate and find our way all the way to Salas, I do want to send you all the way back to Steve, who's got another one of our feathered friends.
And we have found a very bizarre bird, folks. Oh, he's gone. Of course he's gone. He just moved there. Let's move a little bit further forward. Looked like an emerald spotted wood dove, but a little bit back. But it had golden spots right there. There we go. Folks, the emerald and the spots was not... that's looking a bit more emerald, but on the other side, the feathers look golden. It's like someone's taken little shiny stickers and stuck it on the wings of this bird. Beautiful bird. He's just hiding in the undergrowth here. Some fallen trees. Wood doves have got a smaller wingspan than your normal doves, and hence the name wood dove. They're able to fly through these thickets quite easily and sort of have more of a niche, or a different niche to that of the other doves that we have in the area. So they're slightly smaller, but in every other respect very, very similar in what they do. Having a little preen, and you can see there the beak coming around onto the preen gland, which is just above the tail, and you see how he's zipping those feathers back into place. It's going from the inside all the way out. The feathers, especially the flight feathers, get a little bit mangled and untidy, and they have to zip them back into place just like you would a normal zip, and that locks those hooks back into place. Beautiful little sighting of this guy. The most mournful of the sounds out here in the African savannah. I'll play it through my mic. Do you hear that call? My father's dead, my mother's dead, everybody's dead, I'm so sad. It's the saddest call out here. Liz asks what bird on my life list I'd like to see. quite interested in whatever. There's another one in the party nearby. Oh, here it goes. There it goes. What on my life list? I've got 609 species now of South Africa's 900 and something, and there's a lot of birds on there I still haven't seen, and a lot of them would be albatrosses and pelagic species off the coast, but none of those are really on my to-do list. I would really like to see a golden-headed oriole, which is obviously only found in Mount Gorongosa, but I believe that's quite a mission to go and see. And then the buff-spotteds. There's a lot of fluff-tails. The buff-spotted fluff-tail I've heard, but I've never seen. Maybe I can show you a little picture of that one. Let me just pause that before he plays again. Buff-spotted. Here's the buff-spotted fluff-tail. Let me just show you. There we go. Look at that funny guy. And listen to the call. They are quite uncommon to see, so that is definitely on my list. But we are going to carry on from here, and I believe Taylor has for you a beautiful orb in the sky.
I also have some midges that just want to die, so I'm slapping them because, well, high-fiving my other hand and then also killing the midges at the same time because they keep going up my nose and into my eyes. But isn't that the most gorgeous, that's not a word, isn't that the most spectacular scene you ever did see? It really is beautiful. That's one thing though, every now and then this haze that's above the triangle at the moment comes in handy, and I reckon that you should all take as many screenshots as you can and hashtag Safari Live so that we can all see it. But that is splendid, the way that the sun is just poking through the clouds and all those beautiful rays of light down on the Olololo scarp, and you may even see a few midges flying across your screen every now and then. Why must you fly on my head? I don't understand. They've got the whole triangle to fly around in. I can't sit still, everybody. I'm so sorry. I know how beautiful this view is. However, they bite. And it is painful when they bite. Ugh. Okay, I need to get out of there. Oh, that was terrible. Right. We're in jackal heaven now, though. This is where we could potentially see the jackal pups. I haven't seen them for a while now, which is upsetting. I don't know where they've gone. Have they left us yet? Maybe. Like I keep saying, they keep getting to that age now. I'm just checking very carefully, because if they're going to be active, they probably will be active now. And it'll be nice to see them in the golden light. But I don't see any heads bobbing above the grass chasing grasshoppers at the moment. We will keep searching, we'll keep checking around here. I'm going to send you back down to South Africa, to Tristan, who's sitting with Thandi, and I think she's still fast asleep.
Well, I wish you luck, Taylor. You can see we are in the thickets now, so Thandi has decided to move and to reposition herself into a place where, well, you wouldn't even know she's there. So she's lying behind those bits of grass in front of the fallen... There we go. Hello, girl. Now, why are you getting upset with me? I haven't done anything. Now, you see, she's just growling a little bit, so I just want to lower my voice a little bit, but you can see how quickly she can disappear. It just goes to show you why sometimes we really struggle to be able to find these leopards. Okay, I wonder if the cub's not here. I just want to keep quiet a little bit. Just let her settle down, because she almost looks as though the cub might be around. Maybe this is a different den site that she's using at the moment. I can't see anything. I'm relying a lot on Seb and the camera, because literally we have no view of her when she puts her head down. As you can see, like that, it's very difficult to find her, and you can imagine how many times we drive past leopards without even knowing. There's where she is, in that little general vicinity over there, and you can see it's not that far from the car. I would say it's maybe 20 meters from where we are, and yet you cannot see that leopard at all, only when she pops her head up, and even then it's difficult So I'm not sure what's going on and what she's up to on that side of things, but there's no other way to get to this area, and so it would be a good place for a den site. Lots of fallen over trees and lots of places where she can hide this little cub. And so I wonder if that's what's going on. I'm hoping to see a little bundle of fur bouncing around through that grass. So, well, that's what I'm going to try and hope for. The fact that she is a little growly about it, maybe that means that there is a little bundle of fur bouncing in that area, and that she's just kind of making sure that we know this is her section. But isn't it amazing when she just drops back down again, how quickly she disappears? Now, since we don't see her very much at the moment, and talking of baby leopards, I have some very good news for all of you. And so those of you that have been asking about Kuchava, apparently she was seen at some point either yesterday or this morning on Chitwa with suckle marks. So she has given birth, which is apparently, I mean, I can't verify 100%. I've just been told that somebody saw her with suckle marks in the last 24 hours, which means that she has given birth. Where exactly, no one knows. But it is really exciting news that Thandi's generation is now, for the first time, going to receive the next generation. So for her, she's had only the one female that she's raised to adulthood, and that one has now just given birth to, which is very cool. Nina, you say the leopard population seems really stable here. Well, we have had a good run at things lately. I mean, we have had we did have, I suppose, a terrible start to 2017. The first quarter of 2017, or maybe the first half of 2017, was not good, in that we, lost Kruger somehow. We lost Salahesh. There's been a couple of males that have disappeared. There was even a Vatumi also was out. So, we had a few that disappeared over that period, and it's nice now that we've got a few others. I think the cub is there, or she's feeding, one of the two. So that's why she keeps dropping her head like that. But isn't this incredible, the camouflage that a leopard displays? It is absolutely baffling to me how she can just disappear. I can promise you now that that grass is not long, but it is amazing that once she gets flat like that, those spots just completely melt away, and you can see why James had such a struggle to try and find her on foot earlier. Right, well, we're going to sit here for a little bit. Hopefully the little cub will pop out at some point. Who knows? But while we sit and be patient, let's go across to James Henry as he meanders on his feet through the African wilderness.
Well, it's difficult to meander on anything other than your feet when you're on foot. I've seen some people who are strong enough, of course, to do it on their hands. I am not one of those people. David, are you one of those people? No, he's not. Now, Tula Ann and Tucker, aged just 5 years old, you were very kind. You said that you think it's funny when I do my little accents, and you want to know how I learned to do that. Well, I just sort of do it, as lots of people do. And you'll find as you get a little bit older, your ability to imitate people, which means to talk like they do, will get better and better. And the more time you spend around people who talk in a certain way, well, the more like them you will speak. So you'll learn to do it, don't worry. I'm not very good at it. Some people are excellent at it, and they can really make you think that they are someone else. Right, now I heard some oxpeckers down through here, and I just want to see what perhaps was making them call. We'll probably go to this termite mound. Sabi? Everton? Da farmer is to learn is right. Man, I was telling him we're going on to this termite mound. David just broke his foot on a stick. Don't worry about it, he's a cameraman. The cameramen get this thing called camera foot, which the champion of camera foot, of course, is Jean-Andre. They kick things, break their toes, stand on rusty nails, hurt their ankles. No, I can't see anything from the other side of this. It's very important, and I have to keep reminding myself of this, that despite the fact that... David, would you stand up straight, please? I have to remind myself that there could easily be buffalo around soon. We haven't seen any for a long time, so every time there are oxpeckers, make myself come and check so that I remain aware. Now, on top of this mound, we have got evidence of various creatures. Firstly, a hippo. Firstly, a bird that has been eating quite a lot of fruit. There's some of its dung. There's the rest of its dung, and I suspect what I was looking for here was some termites. Then, over here, we've got dwarf mongoose dung, and they obviously live here, I think, quite extensively. There are probably quite a few of them. This is probably their permanent refuge, and I suspect they saw us coming and have disappeared inside the mound. All right, I think what I heard was we're going to go across to Taylor, who is not bumbling, but driving today around the Masai Mara, some 1,600 miles from here.
I'm driving and twirling my hair at the moment because it is so knotty after being out for the whole day. I need to put a brush through it. Might not get a brush through it. Now, we're bumbling. That's what we're kind of doing. We're just moving from point A to B until we find our next animal. I think there was a question, I think it was from Philip, and it was with regards to guides getting malaria and how common is it in Africa. Fairly. Philip with a B. Philip with a B. Philip. Philip? We'll go with Philip. Not a B. We're doing alphabet today. Philip. The D. Sorry. Sometimes it's quite hard to hear what's going on. But up in the Mara, it's no worry at all. However, down in the Sabi Sand, it's been particularly bad this year. Unfortunately, a number of people have died from malaria, so everybody is on high alert, and that's why it's so important if somebody does come down with malaria in camp, you get them out of camp very quickly, because that is how you wipe out an entire camp. All it takes is one person to be infected, and then all the mosquitoes in the camp could bite them and become infected too, and then spread it. So it's important that you get to quarantine, you just move away. So down in the Sabi Sand it's bad. The government, however, insists that they come and they spray around the camps and lodges for malaria because it is so bad. But yeah, we're alright. And you can't unfortunately live on preventative medication, as you will probably have liver failure in a relatively short amount of time. So you kind of just go without. You wear long sleeves and long pants at night when you can. If it's not too hot, you use mosquito repellents. You keep your windows closed. You sleep under a mosquito net. So we try and do everything we can to avoid it. Right, back you go down to South Africa, where the sun is not setting just yet. But Tristan, however, is probably a little bit more excited now that he can see Thandi.
Careful, careful.
Indeed I am, Taylor. I'm always love when I get to spend time with this cat. And you can see we can reposition slightly, and what we've got is her back at the moment. And you can see she's moving quite a bit. So the cub is not here. What she's doing is she's busy feeding off this kill that James saw the drag mark for. And so she had dragged it down into a little thicket in there. And that's what she's busy doing now. It's just trying to feed off that. And I don't think there's much left. So it's going to be good for us to stay here with her and make sure that as she feeds and eats, that maybe once she's finished she might go to the cub and go and suckle it. So it's good, but you can see, look, she's using her mouth just to tear and to try and use those connational on the side of her mouth to get little bits of chunks of meat off. But she's got herself into a real ditch in there, and it's really difficult to be able to see her. But it's not. Oh, there we go. She pops her head up every now and then just to check, especially when she's feeding. She's making a bit of noise. She crunches every now and then, or she's tearing at flesh, and that makes a bit of a sound. So she pops her head up just to look around, make sure that she's not being approached by anything, and then she goes back to feeding. So I don't know what she's got to eat. I mean, we can't see anything from here, and there's no other way to be able to get into where that is and to be able to see her. There's literally, she's put herself in probably the worst possible place for anyone to view her, but the best possible place for a leopard to feed, because she's got a number of escape options and a number of places she can go up trees, but she's also so well hidden that anything that walked past her probably wouldn't even see her if she just stopped feeding and watched them. It really is phenomenal where she's managed to get herself. And I wonder if it's because she heard James and them coming and she just decided she'd just stash it down in here where she can then feed. Now hopefully she'll pick it up and move it. That would be first prize for us. Maybe just move it up and out a little bit of that gully that she's in. There certainly isn't any other way to see her than where we are now, but we think we've got a fair enough view at the moment, and at least we can see her back and her hips and that beautiful golden coat and the tail that goes around, and every now and then we get to see that little head popping up, which is quite nice. But how cool is this? It's great to have her on a kill, because like I was saying, it's really going to help us unlock where the new den site is. Even if she doesn't take us there tonight, tomorrow morning we should have a situation where we'll be able to find tracks going somewhere, and then obviously we can get onto those tracks and hopefully we'll be able to find where that is. Right, well, Thandi is busy feeding. Hopefully she'll bring the kill out. We're going to be patient and wait, and in the meantime, let's go back across to Steve and his trees.
Back with the trees indeed. I can't help myself. I absolutely love them, and they are generally quite stationary and easy to find. You don't have to track them. I believe there was a question from Ravinda about the oldest tree. Are there any over 1,000 years old? We have big leadwood trees in the area, and some of them apparently can stand or live for over 100 years. Once they're dead, they can stand and they can live for over 1,000 years. Apparently, no one around today actually has ever seen it, because as you know, most of us don't live over 100, but apparently leadwood trees can live up to 1,000, 1,200 years, plus minus. That is a very, very long time. But while we are here, this is kind of the activity I was talking about, what elephants do. And you can see they've come along here with the tusk. You can actually see the gouge mark there, and it is wounding the tree. Here is some gum from the tree. It's kind of like a red blood cells. Doesn't have any smell to it. This is a false marula, and the elephant has come along and gouged the bark here to get at the cambium inside. The cambium, this is sort of like the blood network, the capillary network. The inside wood is dead, it's hard, there's nothing to it. All the tree has is this outside cambium layer where the nutrients from the soil go up in the water solution. They get synthesized into proteins and food up in the leaves, and then they move around and quite often stored in the roots as well. And if this gets completely cut around, the tree will die. So that is the story, and you can tell this is a false marula by the shape of the bark. It almost looks like strips of bacon are attached to the tree here. A lot of people get this confused with the marula, which looks like little golf balls have been hit there. Quite easy to identify when you spend some time at it, but initially a very difficult tree to understand. And something interesting about the false marula, it's called the tree of forgiveness, or the tree of forget and forgive. Locally, the Shangaan people, this is a story my tracker told me, if they ever had a quarrel or something went wrong in the marriage or the relationship, they would be forced to come here, and they'd almost tie them to the tree until they forgive and forgot their issues. Now, whether they actually did that or not is hard to say, but let's forgive, let's forget, let's not dwell on things in the past. That the elephant has done the damage here, and that is where slowly but surely insects will penetrate, leading potentially to its death. But this tree is still looking very strong and healthy. And just on a side note, false marulas are always associated with termite mounds. It must have something to do with the access to water. You go around the Sabi sands, around the Kruger Park, and you always find false marula near termite mounds. You never find them up at the top of the Katina. Those of you with us last night, the top of the hill, you'll always find marulas up there, but you won't find false marulas up on the top. Always down the bottom and with termite mounds. Okay, so I believe Tristan has got Madam Thandi there, which is wonderful news. We still haven't had any luck on our side here, but VM and I are having a great time exploring this wonderful environment and getting to learn the roads as well, which is quite nice. Nice to have Tristan stationary somewhere. Gets me freedom to search and travel absolutely everywhere. And while I continue to explore Djuma, Mr. Kirsten is all the way in the Mara doing something similar.
Kommst du?
Those communication gremlins. My goodness. How terrible. Sorry, everybody. Ralph will be back in a moment. Please hold. No. I forgot anything. No animals for you, unfortunately. It's so quiet along the forest, which is upsetting. I miss it when the elephants used to live here every night. Remember how we used to say, and the elephants are coming down from the escarpment and heading to the forest to feed. Now they're going from the forests to across the other side of the Mara River. They never go up the escarpment, barring a handful that are living up there, like the group that is terrified of people and lives up on the lives in the valleys. And I think why they're so terrified is because they're quite naughty, these elephants. They've worked out that the Shamba, which is the Angama gardens, are beautiful and have got all sorts of amazing things, like they're growing passion fruits and they're growing spinach and lettuces and tomatoes and carrots and radishes and all sorts of other great things. So they go and they try and eat those, but they get a fright though, because they go and they lean against the fence. The fence is not electrified, but it's got bells on it. So can you imagine, in the quiet of the night, you reach over to try and grab a nice juicy tomato, and then like an old-fashioned cowbell starts wiggling and starts ringing. It's enough to give you a bit of a fright. You're a little bit nervous. And then I'm sure they have people shouting at them as well, trying to get them away. But they are naughty. They've trumpeted at me a couple of times. Right. No luck with Ralph, I'm afraid. However, we're going to have better luck with Tristan. He's got his patience pants on and he's sitting with Thandi. Hopefully, it's all going to pay off.
Well, as you can see, not much has changed with our leopard. She's still feasting away down inside that little gully, and it doesn't seem like a very big kill, given the fact that I can see her whiskers every now and then through those blades of grass, yet I can't see a carcass in any way, so I can't see any sort of rib cage or anything like that. I would imagine that this must be maybe a small impala, baby duiker, baby steenbok, something like that, scrub hare, something of that sort of size range, because otherwise we would have seen a rib cage, most definitely. You can see her ears are twitching between the blades of grass there, so it's not that deep inside this gully. It's deep enough that we can't see her face, but certainly not deep enough that it would hide a substantial meal. So it's good for us. It hopefully will mean, like I say, that she will finish it very quickly, and then it will be on towards wherever the cub may be. That's the idea, at least. Whether or not it plays out, well, time will tell. And that's the best thing about being out here, is that you just never know what's going to happen. You never know if she's going to get up and go straight away, or if she's going to just sit and lounge around for the rest of the evening. But it's worth being patient for, and worth sitting, because, well, I'm sure, like many of you, missing the little cub, but we haven't seen it for a few days now, and so it's such a cute little thing that it's when you don't see it for a few days, you kind of start to miss it a little bit. So I would love to see it, and I know Seb is dying to see the little cub. He's very, very excited to try and see it, as we all have been for our first time to see it. So hopefully we will be able to grant Seb his wishes and find this little cute cub somewhere in this area. I wonder if she hasn't moved it that day when James saw them, if she hasn't moved it into this drainage line that we're actually in. It goes over Philemon's Dip and then runs towards the Mulawati area, and so I wouldn't be surprised if it's somewhere inside there. Lots of great places for a leopard to den in there, so it could very well be that she's just moved her den into this drainage, which is going to make it very tough for us, because ultimately it's... There we go, she's picking it up. It was quite rusty in color, so I'm going to go with either baby steenbok or baby impala. That's what my two calls are going to be for this particular animal. Well, I'll just have to wait and see for her to pick it up properly once more. But it's going to be difficult if her den is in this drainage line, because as you can see, we're already struggling here, and it gets worse. The further east you go, the harder it is to negotiate it, and so she might be in a place that is just not accessible even for... Oh, she's calling? Listen, she's calling. You hear that? So she's calling for the cub. You hear that chuffing sound? So when she calls the cub, she goes... Now she's making lots of noise. Now, okay, girl, come past. She's going to come past us. She's just down below. But she's calling. Look, she's calling. Seb, there's a bit of a hole here. I wonder if she's going to get the cub out. She's most definitely calling it, though. It's very soft sounds that she's making. So I just want to sit nice and quietly, because the cub is very good. It knows only when Mom calls it must it come. And I wonder if she's calling it to come to meat for the first time, to come say, come, try this meat, see what it's like, see what it tastes like. You're getting to that age now where you're going to start being weaned off milk slowly. Can you hear that? No, I just have to hold on. I just need to tell the guys. Yeah, Andrew, she's just started calling this cub, so if you can just stand by there, please. So I just had to tell Andrew just to wait, because... So she's just stood up and just moved onto the top now and is calling. Now, obviously when we've got cubs and things like that around, we try and limit the number of vehicles. So Andrew just said he's going to give us a bit of space so that hopefully the little one comes out. But she's definitely calling, and I'm trying to look down in the drainage just to see if there's any sign of little ears poking out anywhere or coming from a fallen over tree. Now, she stopped calling now. The way that she was facing, though, was onto the other side. It seems as though maybe that cub is hidden still in the drainage just on the other side here. There's another gully that runs east-west. Still calling. No, still very quiet. I don't see anything now. The little cub will take a while. As we know, it's a bit naughty. It doesn't really listen to Thandi very much at all. The other day we watched it where it wanted to just go on its own direction altogether. And Thandi, the more she called, the more this little cub was like, nope, I'm not coming to you, Mom. I've decided this is where I want to be. So who knows how long it will take for this little one to come. But it'll be so cool if it does come out. And obviously it's going to be very difficult visual from where we are now. But we'll try and reposition ourselves if the little one does arrive. So while we sit and be patient and hope that this little one makes an appearance, let's go back across to Steve, and I'm not sure what he's up to, but hopefully he's going to have some luck this afternoon too.
How exciting. I believe Thandi is busy calling her little cub. Wouldn't that be sensational? So folks, we're just going to do a little bit of an ecological thing here for you, and then hopefully you can go back to that magnificent creature. I am standing on, yes, you guessed it, a knob thorn, a very big specimen, and what I wanted to show you, just to continue with what we were talking about before, is if you look below my feet, you can see where the bark has been stripped off quite a long time ago. And let me just lean down here. Quite a long time ago, this bark was damaged. It's dead inside, but you can see where the fire came in from the side and burnt the tree. And eventually at some point, wind or whatever it is, age, or the tree was dead, it has fallen over. But we think chaos, we think destruction. But what has actually happened here is a huge amount of shade that used to stand directly here has shifted to another point. So this whole dynamic over here has changed. That's got more sun than it did before. Now there's a shade dynamic over there. And there's a huge amount of organic material. There's a huge amount of space. If you follow me along the branch here, just inside, there are cavities. Massive cavities there. Squirrels, insects, snakes. Underneath the bark, we find scorpions. All sorts of things will be living in and on this wood. Underneath it, all around. This is not the end of the cycle. This is nutrients from the soil. going up into a massive tree, and over a very long period of time, this will dissolve back. This is going to take years, folks, until this is finally back into the soil, and by that stage, who knows how many life cycles of insects are going to have perpetuated within this dead wood. So if I just walk along it a bit more, it is a monster of a tree, and there are cavities riveted absolutely everywhere. And if you can look behind me, there is quite a bit of devastation. All the trees you see fallen over and damaged. Yes, you guessed it once again. Small knobthorn trees, elephants pushing them over. We are only probably about 200 yards from Twin Dams, yes. Where there's water, you have a 5-kilometer radius, so probably about a 2.5-mile radius around a water point where you get a lot of destruction, purely because animals are constantly going in there. Elephants go in, and as they come out, they're feeding. As they go in, come out, they're feeding. So you get a lot of devastation closer to water than you have further away. That's why we have what looks like an absolute war zone, but this is perfectly normal, perfectly natural, and the knobthorns seem to be taking a beating. But that is part of the system, it's part of the ecology, and that is what we love. That is what we love. Okay, don't get tangled in the knobthorn branches. Gonna jump back on. I hope you're enjoying the ecological aspects of the afternoon drive. I really am. So from fallen trees to monkeys in trees, Mr. Hendry.
Yes, I suppose I'm a little bit monkey-like, but that's okay. I'm standing in a tree that I wanted to climb for a very, very long time. It is a tamboti tree. It sits upon a termite mound on the eastern bank. Let me turn so that you can hear me properly. On the eastern bank of the Mlwamati drainage system. I've always expected, or often expected, to find a leopard in this tree, but I am the closest thing to a leopard than I've ever seen. Apparently that Steve is shouting, "Don't fall, James, don't fall, James." Well, I'll do my best, Steve. I'm actually not very high up. Now, this is the kind of tree, of course, that you would expect to find, whoopsie daisies, something like a black rhino coming to eat. They like to eat tambutis. You'd also expect to find the scrapings of porcupines underneath it. I haven't seen any porcupine scrapings at all. They eat the bark. And also, you will find elephants will come and stand in an area like this on a very hot day in order to avoid the sun. And if you look around here, you can see there's A, a lot of elephant dung, and B, a lot of this grass has been moved off, or grazed away, or flattened. Now, it's very exciting that Thandi is chuffing away. She's still chuffing, and maybe that little thing will come out very shortly.
Indeed, James, it's very exciting. And she's right in front of the car calling, which means that she's showing complete trust in us. To be sitting here calling right next to us means that she doesn't mind if the little cub comes out when we're here, which is fantastic news. It means that our afternoon of giving her space, just giving her a little bit of time, means that she's now worked out that we're not a threat in any way, and that she's happy for this little cub to come out. So that's the amazing thing about it. And it just goes to show, if you're just respectful to these animals, then you can be rewarded. And also patient. That's the other thing. Now, there's a really big thicket just to my left, and that's where she's looking into, and she's kind of pleading for this little cub to come out. She's like, "Come on, little one, time for you to come out." You can see what we're dealing with on our left-hand side. So even if this little cub is to our left, we're not going to be able to see it. But if the cub was where we were, she certainly wouldn't be comfortable like she is now. You can see she's calling, looking down in there, and hopefully this little one's going to come bounding out of this thicket. There we go. I'm sure it's coming, Seb. The fact that she's taken a step forward. I'm looking on this left-hand side. I'm hoping it's going to come out. I'm so excited for Seb, actually. I'm more excited for Seb than I am for myself at this stage, which is quite cool. So it's always the best thing when somebody gets to see a new leopard for the first time, and especially I know Seb loves leopards, and we've spent so much time with leopards over the winter period at Djuma. So I'm hoping that Seb gets to see it as well, which is going to be cool. But the fact that she's looking into this bush and she's calling so much hopefully means that this little one is going to come climbing out shortly. Come on, little one, don't be nervous of us. But look at her. Isn't she not one of the most beautiful cats? I think she's absolutely beautiful. I'm just looking around, all around me, because I don't know where this cub could be. The way that she's kind of looking, you never know. She's kind of just staring in different directions. It's not behind us anyway, is it, Seb? No, I don't see it. She's calling, though. Normally cubs come when they're called like this, so, you know, sometimes, like I say, particularly with this little cub, is that she's a little naughty, and so maybe it's just deciding to kind of slowly venture in. Not sure about all of this at this stage, but let's see. How cool is that sound? That sound makes me the most excited you can imagine. I love when you hear that. It's a very special thing when you hear it. Now you see, she's just, there we go, she's chuffing, so I think she's seen it. Let's have a look, Seb. It might be coming from the left. I can't see it yet myself, but she perked up quite a bit, and she kind of looked in that direction, so I don't know if it either responded or it came bounding out a little bit that she saw it. There it comes, Seb. Seb, it's there on the left-hand side. It's coming to Mom. Look at how cute it is, Seb. It is the cutest little thing. Come on, little one. Hello. Welcome. How cute is that, guys? Hello, little one. You are a little rock star. How sweet is that little cub? How cute. Now it's going to get a little grooming session. Yes, where have you been? Come, you need to get cleaned, and you can see there, when she lifted her tail, most definitely a little female. Now I think Thandi's going to take it down to the meat. We might see it go to a carcass for its first time. I think it's probably been introduced already. Oh, it's being licked now and rolled onto its back. Look at that. How sweet is that? Oh, that is just the best thing to see in the whole world. That is very, very cool. We are so spoilt to be able to see something like this. We really are. It is the most epic thing in the whole world to be able to spend time with a leopard and its little cub. And so we are really being kind of given a treat to be in this kind of place, and for her to have the confidence to call it out right in front of the car is just something spectacular. So we really are, like I say, being spoilt. The rain is also starting to fall. It's just kind of becoming a moody afternoon. Seb, how was that?
Awesome.
Is that awesome, Seb? Seb says he's so happy, and he's grinning like a Cheshire cat, as am I at the moment, and he's very happy that he's managed to see this little cub, and he says it's very, very cute. Well, I agree, Seb. It's probably one of the cutest little things we could ever imagine. Look at it. It's boisterous as well, naughty as well as being cute, but aren't most little cubs the same? Although this one seems to have its little attitude of its own. It seems to just want to do its own thing all the time and run around like a little bit of a hooligan and kind of do what it wants. Now you can see it's a very dense thicket that she's now gone onto the other side. I was hoping she was going to lie down really where she was at one point, so she was kind of right out in the open where we first got to see that cub, but now she's lying in a bit of a thicket, and I don't think we're really going to be able to move too much. I also don't want to startle her in any way. I want the cub to settle and for her to settle. You can see she's bonding with the cub right now, so that grooming that you're seeing is all a bonding process. That's how they strengthen what they have as a mother and a daughter, is by rubbing up on each other, licking, making sure that that little cub is in this sort of good condition and good health. So Faith, you say, it should be illegal to be that cute and that it's too sweet for words. Well, it is, isn't it? It is the most incredible thing to see little leopard cubs, and it's always the debate which one is cuter, lion or leopard. But, I don't know. It's a tough choice, actually. Both of them are very, very cute little things. I suppose my love for leopards means that I'll always pick leopard before lions any day of the weekend. Doesn't matter what size they are. But certainly this little one as well has got the best attitude. I love the fact that it's quite feisty and that it does its own thing. It's just like her mom, really. I think it's going to be a very similar cat to her mom, although it doesn't display that nastiness, or not nastiness, but that growling that she has every now and then. So hopefully that won't be a part of that sort of inherit that trait is what I'm trying to look for. So hopefully she won't be a growly cat. She'll be a bit more like Kuchava, because Kuchava is a very relaxed cat these days and hardly ever growls at vehicles and is quite chilled. But look at those eyes. It's an eye of a mother who is comfortable but is still watching us very carefully with her little cub around. And I think the cub is settled to have a little suckle. I think that's what's happening, and so that's why she's lying in the way that she is. Zephyr, you're wondering how old will the cub be until Thandi stops moving the den around? Well, we're getting to that now. When we're in that process, the fact that she's got a carcass, the fact that she's got the cub here, is generally a sign that that cub is no longer really being denned. It's now starting to actually, being moved around into wherever their food is. So I think it's a situation where she's going to obviously still keep it in thickets and keep it in holes in the banks, but the process of her actually denning for long periods, I think, is over. I don't think she's going to stay in one place for 2-3 weeks at a time like she did over Christmas. I think we're going to see a lot more movement from her and her little cub, given that it is now starting to be introduced into a carcass environment. One thing that has been seriously interesting through this whole process with Thandi, and something that I have never seen with any other leopard before, is that she has, throughout this denning period, been taking carcasses back to den sites. So if this is a den, she might have actually brought this carcass back, and it seems as though she's been targeting small animals, so going after things like baby impalas, duiker, steenbok, because she can carry them and she can then drag them all the way back to the den site, which is very strange. You generally don't see that from a leopard, and the reason why you don't see that is because things like hyenas, lions, other leopards can then pick up that scent and follow her here. So it is a very strange thing that she does it. I'm not sure why she does it, but evidently it's working for her. She's successful at this stage. The little cub is able to start climbing trees already. We did see it climb a tree the other day, and so it's getting to that point now where she can be confident enough, I suppose, to bring meat back to the den, because the little one will be able to try and get up into trees and away from any potential threat. So it is a very cool thing to see, and it's the best time now that we'll have with Thandi, is from now until about a year old. We have the best moments, because that's when she kind of moves with it. There's a lot of playing that goes on, and it really becomes a very phenomenal part of a leopard's life. So we're incredibly fortunate to be a part of this and to be able to witness this, hopefully on a day-to-day basis. Right, now trees are in our way with Thandi and the little cub, and talking of trees, I believe Steve, well, he's still on his trees, and I see he's absolutely loving it this afternoon.
How wonderful you are seeing the little cub. Ladies and gentlemen, I am extremely jealous, so much so that I've decided to come and take a seat in the grass. I thought I'd continue my ecology discussion, and we are right next to a small pan over here, but yet there is a huge amount of grass that I'm sitting on, and one of the species here is actually called couch grass, hence why I'm sitting on it, and I will show you the inflorescence of it here. V, can you get on that? You can see it's a small, almost looks like a bird's foot, 4 little legs or foot toes. And it's called couch grass Cynodon dactylon, which is known as a pioneer species and a subclimax. Now, if you understand what a pioneer means, this grass grows in, and it actually grows like a mat along the ground. And so once it starts off as a pioneer, as a seed, it then grows and starts growing as a vegetative growth. Doesn't require seed to spread. Obviously, it does provide seed in the form of this here, which should be deposited elsewhere. But where it grows here, it forms this mat along the ground, which is very good for the ecology because it protects the soil. Anywhere where you have hippos, these lawns form, because the hippos will come along here and graze. It's a very palatable grass. It's nice and sweet, and the hippos will actually mow it down to quite a short little height. We've had a bit of rain, so the grass is quite high, but this stuff, being quite close to water, will actually be green generally throughout the year because of the access to the water table and to the pan system. And we are here, very nice for the ecology, lots of grass species here, but just behind me, to keep on the topic of ecology, watch out for that. You can see how the grass has grown in here, And this is not a knob thorn that's been pushed over, but yet it is a buffalo thorn that's been broken down and pushed down. But can you see how tall the grass has grown in here versus this over here, which is actually just new growth? In here the grass grows really, really tall, and that is a process where an elephant has damaged a tree, as we've been talking about today. It covers an area and it allows the seeds to grow inside. The grass will grow up. Herbivores, I mean, I can't even stick my foot in there. It'd be difficult. There could be snakes, there could be things in there. The herbivore can't get its face inside, so it prefers the grass on the outside. So this forms a nursery. First of all, seeds can blow in, they grow, they have the seed bank, and they can then spread out to all these areas around here. What have we seen? We've seen mongooses, we've seen francolins and spurfowls, snakes, all sorts of things will live inside these little niches. It is much cooler in there, there's a lot more moisture, and also can maintain sort of quite a nice temperature as opposed to this open area. You can imagine the species diversity in an area like that versus inside here. I couldn't even imagine how many insects are in there alone. So you'll often find bird species going in there for feeding. So we're keeping up the topic of ecology. Lots and lots of information on that to go. But I do believe that someone's with something a bit more interesting and is not moving. Let me just see. Sorry for the figure of 8 in my cable. We are plugged back in. We're going to continue on. I hope you've all managed to get a really nice look at Thandi's cub. Apologies. After Noel telling me yesterday I was an efficient driver, I stalled the vehicle. It does happen. So it's a little bit of rain coming in from the south, but it's not too much. So we're going to continue on here, folks. We're doing a big loop around to see if there's any activity of cats crossing back into the property. And while we do so, Mr. Henry, I believe, is still on foot. So let's go to him.
Well, yes, I'm certainly not flying at this stage. I'm just investigating this little pan, and you won't believe what I found. Nothing. Marvellous. Okay, let's David, I did spot something of vague interest back here. I was hoping desperately to find something interesting in that waterhole for you, but I'm afraid I did not. Certainly nothing I haven't told you all about 150 times before. Oh, I did just want to quickly mention, sometimes we get new viewers, in fact quite often. This is from a long time before now. When I was talking about the oxpeckers, I didn't explain, of course, that those are the birds that eat the ticks off the animals, and so when you hear them, obviously, huge alarm, you need to watch out for them. All right, what we have here is the beginnings of another one of those lovely lilies. And this is what they look like before they turn into that great and gorgeous flush of candy-striped lilies. They're quite sort of fibrous, and they're a little bit like those welwitschia flowers. A welwitschia flower is the national flower of Namibia, believe it or not, a distinctly ugly thing, but they can live for thousands of years, and the leaves extend miles, or not miles, a long way, sort of meters from the center of the flower, and just slowly die off as they go. They can be thousands of years old, and they look a little bit like this, but twice the size, and in fact not related at all. So that's quite interesting. But, oh, look at this. David, we often talk about the wild basil and the wild aniseed. This is the aniseed. But very seldom do you actually catch them with the flowers on them. Can you see those gorgeous little flowers? The most beautiful purple colour. Mauve, I suppose you'd call it. Oh, and a tiny spider. Oh, David, this is going to sorely test your skills. This spider is no more than 2 millimeters long. There it is. Can you see it there? Does that small grunt mean you do see it?
Yes.
Oh, good. Oh, that's amazing. I have no idea what kind of a spider that is. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, apparently Tristan doesn't have long at the sighting of Thandi and her baby, so go back there and we'll continue our stroll.
Oh, look at this. Look how cute that is. This little one is playing with mom and is licking. Oh, that is just the coolest thing to see. Are we not so spoiled that we have this on our doorstep at the moment? This is literally not even 5 minutes from camp, and this is what we have. And look at the size of those paws already. They are massive. You can see it's now biting Thandi's ear. This is very cute. It's the coolest thing to watch. But like I say, I mean, those paws are huge already. And you think about the size of that cat and the size of Thandi, and you can see just with the sort of paw itself just how big it is on Thandi's head. Now, you can see Thandi's getting a bit kind of sort of concerned because the wind is blowing and there's the roof is touching some of these branches and it's scraping, so that's why she's just looking in our direction, is because there's a bit of noise from the roof itself. But it really is the sweetest thing to watch this little cub play with Thandi, and I look forward to many more days, hopefully, of watching this and seeing how this little one grows up. It is the coolest thing that we've got her around, and that, like I say, she's chosen Djuma to have her den, and not just Djuma, but right in the heart. Oh, there we go, jumping on her head. Look at that, the instinct is already there. You see that? The instinct to get the paws around and to go for the head, that's all already built in. And now she's busy pulling fur out of the back of her mom's head. There's a bit of chunk of fur that came out there, and also a little grooming that's going on. So she's already learnt what grooming is and how to get rid of certain things. And how cute is that? Now, you normally see mom grooming baby, but other way around with this little one. This little one's got its own attitude altogether, and that's quite a cool sort of look of the two of them. And you can see, even though it's tiny, its ears are almost the same size as Thandi's when they're behind her head like that. You can just see the ear kind of sticking out, not that much smaller, so it takes them a bit of a while to grow into their ears. They always look a bit awkward for the first few months with these massive ears, but she will grow into them. And if it is that same sort of lineage as that what Thandi's produced, all of her offspring have had rather large ears to start with. Wabayiza, Bahuti, Kuchava, Tamba, they've all had the larger than normal ears. Well, maybe not larger than normal, but look at this little one. Are you pushing mom around? How cool. Kathy O'Hire, you're saying, is the cub dark in colour, or is it because it's wet that it's looking darker? Well, it is darker in colour than Thandi because the spots are much closer together, so the contrast between the light and dark is far less. You've got a lot more dark on that small little body than you do on Thandi. And so, oh, look at this. Thandi, you are so relaxed this afternoon, my girl. Well done. And so it appears darker, but it's also probably a little damp. There is a bit of a sort of misty kind of rain that's starting to fall now, and so maybe there's a bit of dampness on it. But it's more that the spots are so close together that it appears darker. Poor Thandi's ear is about to be eaten off at this rate. It's being groomed with much vigor and passion by this little one. Look at that. You see the little teeth there? How cool. Shame. This is the cutest little thing in the whole world. And in a way, it's actually, we always want, when we see kind of have cubs and things, we always try and ask for kind of the biggest litters possible, because it's always nice to, have more than one that grows up, and in case anything may happen, that there's always a more chance of a surviving cub. But sometimes one cub is precious because the interaction between the mother and that cub tends to be a lot more and a lot stronger. It's amazing actually to watch the two of them go about their things and the way that they do bond together. Lilo, you're wondering when leopard cubs start making vocalizations. Well, almost immediately. So this little cub, I've heard it squeaking and squawking and making noise towards mom as well. And so the other day when she was moving it to a different den, and then we found that this little cub was fairly vocal actually at times, and like I say, squeaking and chuffing back at mom. So they are able to make vocalizations, but if in terms of a territorial vocalization, she won't make that until she reaches about 3.5 to 4 years old, and she's got a territory of her own. That's when she'll start making that sound. So a long way to go for this little one before that happens, but it certainly has got the feisty nature to be a queen of Djuma at some stage in the future. She certainly seems she's got it all under control and is really trying to kind of take over the world already, and is not worried about a thing. I mean, we're sitting here and she's paying no attention to us, that little cub. It just goes to show how relaxed. I mean, I'm talking and we're not far from the little cub at all, and yet it's still taking it all in its stride. It's looking around, it's playing with mom, and it is completely relaxed with this whole process, which is so cool to see. I was hoping it was going to go down to the carcass to go and play with the carcass, but unfortunately it seems that mom is more of a play station than the carcass will be, although when it gets a little older, we know from experience that cubs will pick up and throw and throttle and move and sort of play around with their food quite a bit if it's small enough to do so. You can see Thandi's getting annoyed with her tail being bitten. She's flicking her tail all over the place, and that's even making it worse because the little cub will certainly start going after that tail if it can. The more it moves, the more of a game it becomes between mom and cub. You can just see the movement in the background with the tail and the little cub kind of chasing it around quite a bit. Now, often what happens when they play with the tail like this and they bite it, that triggers these leopards to get up and start moving and to reposition because they get a bit irritated with the cub biting at it, and so this is how it goes. Right, guys, well, it is such a special sighting, and there's a few people that have been around for a while that really want to come and see this little cub and spend some time and have a little look, and we've been so fortunate to be able to see this that I think, you know, it's best that we try and give some others a chance to see this. So while we kind of move out and allow others to have a look at this beautiful little cub, let's go back across to James, and I hope that he's not getting too wet as he starts to move, I'm sure, closer to home.
No, not getting too wet. Wonderful sighting you've had there. Thank you, Herbert, for that. This one I'm going to take credit for. Ha 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 ha. A chin spot Batiste. A female up on the top. She's got the chin spot. And down below her, her husband. She's standing watch over him while he possibly makes her some supper or pours her a drink. I don't know what his vibe is at this time of the night. But they're just sitting there, enjoying their evening, and I think you'll find that they've stopped flying around going simply because it's so windy and foul out here that they've decided, let's bed down for the evening. Now, what is so very special about this sighting, maybe not quite as special as Thandi's cub sighting, but still, what's so very special is that we're only standing about 12 meters from these birds. That's about 28 feet or so. And they think we can't see them. Ha 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 ha. But we can. David couldn't see them. In fact, it took about half an hour to show him where they were. But that's okay, David. Your eyes will hopefully improve with age. Although, probably not. Isn't that special? Let's walk this way, Dave. We might get a nicer view of the male. I didn't know that they were found in pairs like this. I thought that they sort of, I didn't really know what they did actually, but clearly they're found in pairs. There's a beautiful shot of the male now. Oh, that is just magnificent. There have been two occasions today that I've been profoundly pleased on your account that I haven't been on camera. Well, all of the time that I've been out here, I've thought that. But one, of course, we had that tiny little spider, which I would never have managed, and only a cameraman of David's skill would have managed to get. And then this beautiful chin spot batis you want nice and steady on the full end of the zoom. So they will sit here for the rest of the night, I suspect, hoping that a more devious predator doesn't come past and spot them in the same way that we have. I'm very interested that they're that close to the ground. I don't know why they wouldn't be slightly higher up. They all fall prey to all sorts of things, the little chin spot batis. That's why they spend most of their time in a very thick bush. They'll fall prey to sparrow hawks. They'll fall prey to snakes sometimes. Have to be a pretty fast snake to catch one. To certainly, I reckon, jennets and that sort of thing, climbing around the trees at night looking for roosting birds, would easily catch and eat one of those things if they weren't careful. So maybe they're on that sort of scraggly branch in order to avoid, or hoping that, something like a jennet or wildcat that jumped up onto the branch would disturb them sufficiently to make them fly away. That's quite possible. But they don't have a nest there. It's just a roosting spot, I think. They don't have that little cup-shaped nest that they normally build. So I don't think they've got eggies. Their eggies would be very small. They would be a bit like those chocolate eggies you get at Woolworths. A bit like those ones. We breathed since we got here. David has to hold his breath, of course, otherwise the camera will shake under sighting like this. So he's gone blue, but that's all right. He doesn't mind being blue. Well done, the Jersey lady. You've given David a compliment. That's marvellous. Thank you very much. After I've insulted him mercilessly for most of the afternoon. He's a bit larger than I am. He's got a pack, though, so he won't be able to get away from me. Let's have one last look at the female. And if the light wasn't so awful, and the rain wasn't starting to come down, I would definitely take an illegal photograph of these little birds. Oh, that's just so precious. So many different kinds of precious incidents we have out here. You've had that really sublime experience of that tiny little cub with her mother. And now a totally different kind of sublime experience with two tiny little birds, no more than sort of 3 inches long. At an outside maximum, they probably weigh in the region of 20 grams. I don't even know if there's an imperial measure small enough for that. So they are absolutely minute pieces of natural perfection. Alrighty, now I suspect another bird that is doing very similar things to these two would be the grey-headed helmet shrike, and Stephen Stivovo has got some for you now.
We did have some. They have just departed into the bush, as birds with feathers are known to do. But I do have a photo. So... oh, there we go. I don't know if you can get that one. He's coming back. It's just in the little bush over here, above the road. There we go. Look at that. Isn't that a gorgeous picture? White-crested helmet shrike, folks, and this is a cooperative breeding species. There's about 4 or 5 individuals here, and they are in a unit. They're in a family unit. And they assist each other in breeding. They assist each other in raising the chicks. There'll be an alpha pair that will do the mating, and but they'll all assist in the feeding of the chicks. Only the alpha pair will do the incubation, but the male and female, or the whole group of them, will actually assist in the feeding. A lot of people ask, how is that possible? Why will birds not be monogamous? What is the advantage of being in a group? Now, they are either related in some way, or they have... they might have come together as a small group. They might be offspring from last year and they're assisting mum and dad with the new brood. But why give up your individuality when it comes to breeding? Well, there are many reasons. And as a cooperative breeder, you can assist in the defense of a territory because there's more numbers. You can also assist in the feeding, so more mouths to pick up food for the babies. But another thing that's very, very interesting is that if something happens to the breeding pair before they lay eggs, the male or the female, is because they know each other, because there's the sex ratio there's another couple males or females in the group, they can quite quickly turn to each other for mating rights. So they don't have to go out through the whole courtship process again and go find someone. It's like basically having a really good friend and just deciding we're going to do this together, rather than having to go on Facebook again and start the social media thing and start finding this person to date and that person, and oh, I don't like his background, and then do reference checks on him. By the time you've done all that, the breeding season's over and you've lost your opportunity. So that's one of the reasons these birds are cooperative. And I think you got a nice visual of it there. I'll just show you on the phone. That beautiful wattle around the eye and white crest on the back is where the name comes from. And in the front of the face there, that little bit there, they use for actually catching spider webs with their head. And they use the spider webs in a symbiotic relationship to cover the nest. And oh, there's a nice close-up of the eye. Sorry, folks, look at that eye. Isn't that a beautiful bird? And if you look at the beak, you can see where it gets the name of a shrike because of that hook on the beak there. If I show you the nest there's a nest with the spider webs, beautiful little cup nest, and that would be the breeding female looking after the altricial chicks, which means they live in the nest and they require lots of parental care, but they got lots of uncles and aunties to help them. But what are the advantages of the spider web? Now, the spider web, first of all, prevents any mites or insects or little ticks climbing into the nest, or if they do climb in the nest, they get stuck. They are just unable to move around. So it's quite nice for keeping the nest sort of clean, and it also adds a little bit of camouflage. A lot of birds who use spider webs will actually go and take lichen off of trees and attach it to the spider web, which is sticky and turns out to be a nice camouflage. And that is awesome ecology for the afternoon. So folks, we're going to carry on. The helmet shrikes have moved off, and you might wonder why I like to talk about ecology. Ecology is very interesting. And a lot of the students I did some training, guide training, and a lot of the students, whenever I mentioned the word ecology, their head used to like sort of do one of these. You could see the eyes go big and they really freak out. But ecology is a very simple process. It's just you look at something and you understand how that animal is adapted to fit into this environment. What does it do to survive? How does it feed? What does it look like? How does it mate? Where does it live? What time of the day is it active? Does it have feathers? Does it have fur? All of these things are ecological things that the animal has to allow it to survive. And depending on the environment, depending on where they are, if you understand ecology, and it's not as difficult to understand as most people think, it's how an organism interacts with the living and the non-living environment. The sun, the water, the weather, the soil, the heat, each other, lions and impalas, all of that is ecology. And we always try and think too deeply, but if you have a good understanding of ecology, you can interpret almost anything in this environment. And while we continue on, we're going to go back to Tristan, who I think has moved back in with that beautiful, beautiful cat.
Well, I'm still with Thandi. I'm not back with her. I never got out of here in the first place because the little cub, through movement, has run behind the car, and I can't move anywhere until it comes back around towards where Thandi is, because I don't want to scare it and be between Thandi and the cub. So I'm just sitting waiting. So the cub ran into this big thicket on our left hand side. You can see there's this fallen over tree right behind the car here, and so that fallen over tree is where it's run into. And so now I'm hoping that it's going to go back towards Thandi, otherwise it might be a very long afternoon of us just sitting here waiting for little one to move back that way. Like I said, I don't want to cause Thandi any stress by being between her and her cub. We know that she's very protective mother, and while she's fast asleep now, she's not really too concerned about the cub being close to us. At the end of the day, I just don't want to stress her anyway, or the cub actually. I don't want the cub to get any fear of the car. I want it to be a situation where the cub learns that the car is not something to worry about, and to see mom's reaction. And if mom is growling and hissing and charging, well then, you know, the cub starts to learn that too. And so it's better just to be patient and wait, and thankfully all the other guys that wanted to come to the sighting, because it started to rain, have decided that they're not going to come, and that allows us then just to sit here and be patient and not have to worry too much at all, which is really good news. So it's a good situation to be in, and you can see, like I say, Thandi is now having a well-deserved nap. She's been a busy girl this afternoon. She's, seen people on foot. Then she had a bit of a feed, and then cub came out. There was a bit of playing and grooming. So nice for her just to have a nice little nap. Now, the interesting part about all of this is, through kind of moving around here and kind of going back and forth and round and about, is that we've kind of ended up in a place much closer than where I thought. We are literally, I would say, maybe 20 meters from Philemon's Dip itself. So I think that she's maybe keeping this little cub in the little pipes underneath the road on Philemon's Dip, and we've just been driving over there without even knowing that she's been there. So I think that's where it's going, because if I look where we are, the sausage tree is right here. It's very, very close to where we are. So as said, pans back, you'll see a bar and a bit of a aerial, which I do apologize about, but there's the sausage tree right there from Philemon's Dip where the aerial is. I do apologize about, like I say, but that's the sausage tree in the background there. So we're very, very close to the dip itself, and that's where I'm pretty sure the little cub ran off to. So hopefully that's where it went off to, because otherwise it's going to be a situation where, like I said, we're going to be stuck for quite some time in this thicket and not be able to get out. So at least though, like I say, Thandi's not concerned, which is good for us, and she's having a really nice nap. And what we'll do is we'll just see how this goes. Hopefully the cub will come back out again. Stephen, the success rate for cubs in terms of reaching adulthood here in the Sabi Sands is obviously it differs because there's obviously changes in males, and depending on what's happening with the males will reflect a success rate in the cubs. But it normally works out to about 30% of cubs that are born within the Sabi Sands are raised to independence, so not necessarily maturity, but independence, which is a very low figure. You would think 3 out of every 10 cubs is not very high at all. And if you look at somebody like Shadow, well, not somebody, but a leopard like Shadow, she unfortunately has had a really poor run of things in terms of luck, and has unfortunately lost quite a number of cubs. So she would have brought the average down, whereas somebody was a leopard like Kruger would have brought that average up a little bit. So Kruger, even though she was 9 out of 10 cubs she was raising to adulthood, you've got a situation where Shadow is only probably 1 out of 20 or so. So, that's why it balances out at around, on average, 3 out of every 10. But, you obviously get times in certain areas where you get a very stable leopard dynamic. So, we've had a really stable dynamic here for the last couple of years in the form of Tingana, and that means that, Kruger was able to have her offspring. Now he's got offspring with Thandi, and hopefully he'll be able to raise those as well as Kuchava, because Kuchava ultimately should be Tingana's offspring as well if she's had little ones. So, there's a lot that Tingana needs to do, and he's got a lot of work because there's a number of young males that are starting to push into this area. Right, well, Thandi's having a nap. We're going to sit tight. Like I say, we're going to just try and see if this cub does emerge from behind us, because like I say, I don't want to frighten it. So while I'm patient and wait for the cub to move off, let's go back across to Steve. And, well, I believe he's got something that's not spotted, but striped.
Indeed. Zebra crossing. Here we have the stallion, who was just hiding behind the grass there. Thanks, FC, for the drum roll there. We've got a beautiful stallion. He was actually almost invisible just behind this small bush. And then as you came to us, he moved. And he is a beautiful specimen. His ladies have just moved off into the bushes there with some babies. And we'll see if we can get a better position here. But we're talking about ecology. We know the zebras eat grass, and they feed on quite a lot of food a day, which they then defecate out, and the whole cycle. So the nutrient cycle, the movement of nutrients from the soil into the vegetation, into the zebra defecates. That dung goes back into the soil through dung beetles, through seeds, through organic material. And also the zebra itself is food for a predator at a higher stage. And when the zebra itself dies, it is decomposed back into the cycle. So it is this loop. It is a closed loop. It's not a one-way system. Ecology is a complete circle. And it's always important to understand that when we find dead animals, or if we find something going on in this system here, it's all natural. It's all meant to be happening. We're not influencing it. We get another visual of this beautiful specimen. There is the dung pile I was talking about. But here he is. See if we can we've got our flaps down, folks, because the rain has started to come. And what is the purpose of the tail from an ecological point of view? It's to keep the biting flies and parasites away from his bottom, which is important. If you have a dirty bum that you can't wipe daily because you have a hoof, then you need to keep the flies away. And when he wags his tail like that, you can see the black line under the tail is quite narrow, when in a female is actually very, very broad. In the male, it's quite narrow from behind, and that helps you to identify male versus female. And often the ecological behavior of these animals is the male zebra will always stand between the threat and his ladies. That's just what he does. He is the boss. And he is quite a beautiful, beautiful looking individual too. Unique stripe patterns on all of them. Oh, can you see the baby at the back there? There he is. He is very cute, and you can tell that this is his dad because, well, if it is a boy, because dad would not tolerate, if it was a boy, dad would not tolerate, or a male zebra does not tolerate young boys if they're not his. And it can be quite violent and can be quite crazy to see a male zebra attacking a baby zebra. It's not fun to see, but it is part of what goes on here. You can see he's difficult to actually ascertain, but he is far bigger than the females. And he's got quite a healthy little harem over here. The social structure of zebra is you have a dominant male with a harem. It starts off when he's quite young with one, and then slowly over time, as he gets bigger, he competes with other males and steals the daughters from the other males in a bit of show of force. The dads of the other daughters allow their sisters to be taken, but not easily. He doesn't give them away. He challenges the male who is looking to acquire them, and he's got to prove to be strong. And clearly we can see there grazers, very, very useful. That top lip almost curls around the grass. And unlike when I was in the tent yesterday, we were talking about the top and bottom jaw of most of your antelopes. They don't have teeth in the top and bottom, in the top of the jaw, the antelope, right in the front of the mouth. But zebra do. They're able to crop the grass very, very low, biting it off with their teeth. That is a great shot. Eating grasses and seeds of grasses, and the mouth is still quite large for a zebra. It's not as selective as it could be in smaller antelope. And the zebra is a hindgut fermenter. For those of you not familiar, they feed on a huge amount of food every day, and it goes straight through the system. But we're going to stay with these zebras for a little while longer, and I believe James has got a very beautiful bird.
Seen one with stivovo. I wonder if you can hear it calling. Let me say that again. I wonder if you can hear it calling. Marvelous, you can hear it calling, and it sounds, of course, like an alarm clock. But I was just standing here with David and Herbert waiting, and then I thought to myself, it's just amazing if you're not here. I don't know why I had this thought, but I had this thought, of course, that everything goes on around us without our being here, and if we're quiet, you get such a strong sense of things just happening all around you. Now, I don't know if I've told you this before, but I love these birds because when I was living in Johannesburg, teaching the guitar to the ungrateful children of the rich, it was very ungracious of me. I used to have a pawpaw every morning, and sorry, I'm just thinking back to some of those kids, and some of them were just great, so I really feel quite bad now. Anyway, I used to have a pawpaw in the morning, and I'd eat my pawpaw, and then you put the skin out on this little raised, I had a little garden outside my window, and I'd put him down there, and before I went off to teach, I'd sit at my desk and read the news and watch these things and their close associates, the black-collared barbets, fighting over my pawpaw. And it was just a lovely touch of the wilderness before I had to go off and sit and teach children how to play G again for the 6th week in a row. It's just gone into a nest. Here's its nest. Oh, and a pawpaw, for those of you who don't know, is a papaya. This knobthorn tree, can you see there's the bark that has been stripped off? And you go up from the bark, and then it sort of thins at a notch, yeah? Yep. And then you go up from there. The next hole that you see, that's the one, just down, yeah, that's him. Yeah. That's where the nest is. How very cool. Marvellous. No pawpaws in there, but he'll have to find himself some quarry fruits to eat, probably. Yeah, David, it's a very good question. They have a number of different calls. I think that's a territorial call. I don't think it's a mating call. I'm not actually getting on the phone while I'm talking to you, David, I promise you. Hello? Yeah, sorry, David, I'll get back to you now. I'm actually just looking. I'm going to see if I can find the call of the crystal bar. But I think that Steve played that for you already, didn't he? Let me do it again anyway, because I'm quite interested. Right, here we go. Yeah, this one we know, obviously. We've just had this endlessly. There. This one's not making anything other than there. I think it's territorial. I've heard it certainly throughout the winter in Johannesburg, and they don't breed in the winter time, so I'm going to go with territorial call there. Okay, shut up. Thank you. Let's carry on. It would be quite rude of me to be delivering a segment and going, sorry, 1 second here. No, I told you to invest in the other stock. Bitcoin, not Ethereum. Thank you. Right. Okay, I've sorted that out now. I'm sure you were all very worried. Let's go across now to Steve, who I don't think is on the phone.
I'm not on the phone, but I'm just trying to reposition so that we can get... Oh, he's doing it again. I saw this behavior yesterday. This little zebra, and I have identified it as a male. He was trying once again to climb on his mother's back. Now he's trying to suckle. It's very cute. They are very social creatures, zebra, and you'll often find them rubbing up against each other, and the males often have the females rub against him and he rubs against them. Very, very social animals. If anybody's ever had a horse before, you know that they like to hang out with other horses. And if there's only one horse, I think they get very sad and very bored, and they don't quite know what to do with themselves. But here we have the mother and her foal. Can't be more than a few months old. Even a month, I would say. Very, very young. It's busy feeding, though. You can see mom there with a mouthful of grass. These are not ruminants. So when they feed, they just chew it and it goes into their belly. Obviously, a lot more basic digestive system than that of your ruminant animals. And there that youngster is busy trying to feed as well. You can see him moving around that little stick where there's some seeds growing. Djuma, gestation period of zebra is the same as that of humans. It's 9 months. 9 months, so it's quite a short period of time, well, if you think about it, but the youngsters are born, they're able to run, they've got very, very long legs, but their body is very, very small. Very small. So probably for an animal of their size, it's actually quite a decent amount of time. And you can see the size difference to the impala there. Obviously the impala and the zebra have similar enemies, so they hang out together. And what is interesting is that they are all kind of feeding into the same direction. The wind is very gentle and coming from the right of the screen, and that is the direction that the animals are moving in, because you can smell where you're going in that direction. If there's any predators upwind of you, you'll be able to smell their presence. And impala are quite good alarm callers, so it's not uncommon to find groups of zebra, impala, even kudu and other animals hanging out together. There goes another baby in the back, galloping next to mom. Commonly known as a dazzle of zebra. Way, giddy up. There he is. They got lots of energy. The impala gave them a bit of a rev. Isn't that just so sweet? Okay, so they come into the open now, which is very nice, and if a predator's looking at that view, the stripes crossing over each other like that actually make it very difficult to isolate an individual. I mean, to us, we can see that definition of the baby, but the baby actually blends right in with mother there because of the stripe pattern. Remember, black and white crossing over each other almost works as an optical illusion, taking all the animals and sort of putting them into one big blur. And when you're a predator trying to isolate one of those and pick them out of the herd, it's very difficult, or at least it gives them that opportunity to get a little bit further ahead. And here we have the boss, always at the back, coming in a bit after the ladies. Fantastic specimen. The mythical painted horse. They tried to domesticate zebras very many years ago when they tried to colonize the northeastern part of South Africa. There's lots of diseases up here that killed the ox wagons, or the oxen, and the horses that came up, the European horses, the European oxen. Sleeping sickness and diseases like that made it impossible for travelers to actually come up here in high demand anyway, and they tried to domesticate the zebra, but it was an absolute failure. Got a photo somewhere of zebras in the traces, and if you want an ox wagon to go forward, you need all the animals to be facing in the same direction. But in this case, you had the ox wagon, and each zebra was facing in a different direction. Horses that we know that around the world were domesticated probably 8,000 or 10,000 years ago, so they have that domesticated gene in them. And 200 years ago or 150 years ago, we attempted to tame these guys. It's way too short a period. They are still very, very wild. And apparently their back is also too weak to be ridden. So we're going to stay here, maybe see if anything else interesting happens. But while we do so, we're going to go back to Tristan, who I believe is just about to leave Thandi.
Well, I've left Thandi already, Steve, but I found a more special animal, and they like to congregate in groups of 3, and they're slowly walking down the road. We don't want to spook them, so we've stopped quite far away. Look, there they go. It's all about the same height, really. Not very tall animals, but very fast gait as they move along. And oh, look, they're looking over their shoulder. They've been detected. Now, whether or not they're going to move faster is no. They're going to now dodder along, as James likes to do. Here's another story, isn't he? Oh, jeez. Oh, there we go. Well done, James. That was very good. Although all we can see is your posterior, should I say, sticking out of a bush at the moment, which is probably not the best view of James Henry that we could ever ask for. Right. Well, let's get on to more serious things. So we left Thandi's den, but I have found something that's actually just landed, and it is very pretty. Now, I'm hoping that it's going to be able to go, because I think it's a little close for the camera to focus. Oh, come on, little thing. I'm not 100% sure what it is. There we go. There we go. Okay, onto the dashboard. So hopefully it's going to sit nicely. Now, come on, stay there. So there you can see a very pretty beetle. It's got a bit of sort of iridescent sheen to it. So at the moment it looks quite dark, but I'm going to try and put some light on it with my phone and try and just give it a little bit more sort of... Oh no, that's not really working. I was hoping that it would give it that iridescent shine that I was seeing just now, but it's got an emerald kind of color to it, and is... It's backlight, you say, Louise. Okay, we can try a bit of backlight. There's some backlighting. No emerald shine there. A little bit more from the front, maybe. No, ooh, sorry, that's my fault. Nope. So it's still looking quite black in color, but earlier it had a nice green tinge to it. And like I say, I'm not 100% sure what kind of beetle it is. It's got some serious jaws on it, though. Can you see those mandibles that are there? And then there's some long antennas that are coming down. Or are those secondary antennas down there? No, those look like little mandibles. There you can see the green coloration now as it comes down. So let's see if we put light on it, it actually gets worse. So it's actually greeny kind of bronze color. Very, very pretty beetle with those striations on it, and it's, well, slowly but surely figuring out what the dashboard is. It's very, very cool. I absolutely love beetles and insects. They're fascinating creatures, and the way they go about life. And is it going to fly? There we go. It looks like it. Wings are slowly starting to open. Are we going to fly? Come on. Oh, the suspense is killing me. It's almost flexed its wings, and the wings of beetles and insects that have a carapace-like shell is very interesting to me, because a lot of them fold. So you would think that their wings would just go in underneath there and not fold because of how delicate they are, but they actually do fold, and as they open out, they then kind of flex, and they are able to then fly with them. It's very interesting to see how they kind of fit them in, because when this guy flies, their wings are much bigger than what that body looks like, so it all has to fold in nice and neatly so that it fits in there and can't be damaged when they are sort of walking about by various things that form, well, that are around here. So things like thorns on a tree, or various predators that might come after them, and those kind of things. Very, very cool little guy, and very obliging too. It's nice to see when you've got an insect that actually sits still, because most of them generally don't, and this one has decided that it's going to be not outdone by any leopard or cub or tree or doddery hendry that is moving around as well. So it's decided that it will just give everybody a little bit of a show. How cool is that? Always good to stop and take in the smaller things in life. And it's always good just to check these things out and, like I say, enjoy them. Right, well, we're going to probably put our little beetle somewhere else so that it doesn't have to live in the car. And while we do that, let's go back across to the Doddery man himself and see how he's going as he tries to negotiate the hill back to Waterhole Lodge.
I'm sitting here. I feel like Jeremy Puddlefrog. This was Jeremy Puddlefrog, wasn't it? Beatrix Potter. I can imagine fishing from here with a small stick with a piece of string attached to the end of it. No, it was Jemima Puddle Duck and Jeremy Fisher. There we are, Jeremy Fisher. And what I'm sitting above, of course, is the foam nest frog, about which I'm sure all of us have told you 1,000 times. But what I will show you is one that I think is an old one from last year. I'm just going to compare the two kinds of foam. That's the old foam from last year, and this new foam I think is from probably, I would have said, before the last decent sunshine we had. No, after the last decent sunshine we had, so no more than 24 to 48 hours old. And somewhere around here there are some exhausted foam nest frogs. For the creation of something like this must have been some scrum. Anyway, and then there's another one actually over here. Yeah, let me bring this closer to the camera. It's slightly easier said than done. Look. Oh, what do you say while I'm here? Please could I fix the nest cam? The nest cam has got a wire that is not attached to anything else, and so I think fixing it's going to be something of a trial. Sorry about that. Anyway, look at the foam. And, oh, there is even some unhatched eggs in it. There we go. Those yellow things, I think, are unhatched foam nest froggy eggs. And then we've got some ants, which are probably not eating the foam. I think the foam eventually rots and just disintegrates. I don't think anything actually eats it. But the ants will probably be eating the eggies. Marvellous. Very good. Okay. Scarlett, your question seems to be how fast is a foam nest frog's nest? Lost a picture. Okay. All right, sorry about that, everybody. How soft it is. Scarlett, that's really soft. That feels like egg white. So if you beat up egg white and you touch it, that's what that feels like there. But this feels like what you'd probably call cotton candy. That's what this feels like. It's got the same kind of texture, and if you squeeze it, it makes that kind of hard, it just becomes hard. Or when you push all the air out of it, it becomes quite hard, like cotton candy. I've just remembered there are ants in here. I'm sorry, ants. Let's put you back over here. I do apologize profusely. It wasn't very nice of me, actually. I hope I haven't squashed too many of them. That makes me feel quite bad. Oh, well, as Louise says, while I deal with my conscience, hand you over to Steve for the last few minutes of the drive. Until tomorrow, goodbye.
Yes, indeed. Foam nest frogs are incredible creatures. We don't have any updates for you at the moment, but it has been a wonderful afternoon. Myself and VM out here, we've explored the majority of Djuma, and I'm really getting the hang of the roads now. And what has been so marvelous is the temperature. You see, I'm wearing quite a nice jacket. I've even got long pants on today just to keep nice and warm. That's because of the ecology. Sorry about that. But that's why we wear jackets, folks, because we need to blend in with the heat and the cold, depending on the time of year. And it's really nice to have cold temperatures in January, because it can be and has been very hot. Paula would like to know, what is my favorite thing about being a guide? I absolutely love walking. I love the sense of being one with nature. And now being a Safari Live presenter, I'm able to go out and do exactly what I want. When I was a full-time guide, we always had guests with special interests, and some were bored of this and some were bored of that, and some liked birds, some didn't. But now I have got all of you wonderful people out there who love everything that we talk about. So that for me is marvelous. I absolutely love being out here. I was telling VM just before, this doesn't even feel like work to me. We are in the bush, we are driving around, and we are trying to show you wonderful things and talk about them. So for me, being a guide, I love just expressing and showing nature. And what's wonderful about being out here is that you never know what you will find. There could be a leopard around any corner. There's always birds somewhere. And as someone asked earlier, do I like trees? Yes, because they are everywhere in the savannah, and they have such wonderful things to teach us. So watching animals interact in their environment for me is very, very nice, very cool, so to say, to see how they get on with things, to see where we evolved. We were hunter-gatherers at one point, walking through this environment with these animals, feeding on these plants. We had knowledge, indigenous knowledge, that we have lost. And even the locals these days are moving away from living in the bush. They all want to live in the cities, and all that old indigenous knowledge is lost. So I'm a guardian and a steward for medicinal value and for culture out here, and I hope in the next few weeks, months, years to come, I'm able to impart that on you. But folks, while we meander on home, VM and I are going to say good night for the evening. It has been an absolutely wonderful afternoon. Thank you for bearing with me with the ecology. Thank you, FC, for always being in my ear. Thanks to VM. Thank you to you, and thank you to all the other presenters from the Mara in here. We'll see you tomorrow early for drive. Good night.